How are we doing? Matt Elwell here, Elite Closing Academy. I spoke recently at a tremendous event that I've spoken at before actually in Brighton called EMC. And I suppose the thing that was a little bit different about my talk is that I was the only non-marketer there. So some of the world's leading marketers were there, like the great Ryan Dice, Matt Wilson himself, Ezra Firestone, and like loads and loads and loads of others. There's too many to name, like unbelievable. Lisa Johnson was there, like just loads. So anyway, my talk was very much about how do you take a qualified lead, somebody that has shown some interest, but for whatever reason hasn't actually bought anything yet or taken the next step. So it's really about how do you have that conversation, how do you do it with some ethics, with some integrity, and like following a simple framework really, just in line with your own personality. It's just a conversation is what I teach. So yeah, like got loads of great feedback about the talk. It was a big stage, big event, lots of people there. And also at the end, lots of people took the next step, which was to download my book, which is called Open with a Close. And we give some of the goodies away and things like that. So loads of people came to the stand. And what was really humbling is I met a lot of new faces who enjoyed my philosophy on sales. It's very conversational really. But also I met lots and lots and lots of people who I already knew. Like people that, that had done business with us in the past, who like our philosophy. And like honestly, I was humbled. I met so many people over the 3 days that came to the Elite Closing Academy stand, and it's great to connect with everyone again. So yeah, like that was us. EMC, looking forward to speaking next year. And by the way, if you haven't already got my book, you can download it. Probably just hit a link below here somewhere, and hopefully we might be able to help you convert some of your conversations, or even more of your conversations, into happy paying customers. So I've got the hard bit. I'm not a marketer, so I'm actually the sales guy. So I just want to check I'm in the right place. Raise your hand if you would love to find a way to sell that's in line with your personal values, that feels elegant, effortless, and gracious. Raise your hand if you're in the right place. Amazing. So the good news is, in the next 45 minutes, I'm going to share with you lots of things that I think you can do now to take all the amazing opportunities that have already been created. Leads, by the way. Leads are human beings. Never forget that. And how do you convert them in a simple conversation in an easy way? So the other thing I'm going to do is at the very end, I'm going to share with you my favourite way to convert a lead or a human being that needs you. Now, I'm happy to be right or wrong. I know a lot of people have got opinions on sales. So last from me, I want to give you writer's cramp, make loads of notes. If you haven't got writer's cramp in 45 minutes, haven't done my job properly. And all I ask for is this. Just give me as much focus as you've done all day. I know it's getting on. We've still got like an amazing speaker to come. So if you're ready, I'm going to put you on 1,000 watts. Imagine you're a microwave meal. I'm at 1,000 watts, all right? You ready? Yeah. Let's go for it then. So firstly, a few questions for you. Question number 1, why should you be great at converting conversations? Well, very simply, 2 reasons. Number 1, when you can take someone who's interested in your product or service and actually have a simple conversation where they end up giving you a little bit of money for the information that led them to move towards you in the first place, 2 things happen. Number 1, you put money in the bank. That's not a bad thing, right? Secondly, you can actually make more of a difference on the planet when you've got happy, paying clients. So you've got to ask yourself right now, why should I be great at this? The other thing you've got to ask is, why should you, right now, own being amazing at conversations that can convert? Like, why should you take this seriously? There's so many other amazing things you can buy. So what's your strongest reason for having the business you've got? When you get out of bed in the morning, what really drives you? Because guess what? That's the thing that's going to push you over the line. If you want to be better at sales, if you know you could do even better, it's your strongest reason for doing what you're doing that's going to change the way you behave. And you've got to lean into that. I can't help you do that. The next question you've got to ask yourself before we can really get going into the training is, why now? So wave at me if you think you've got a competitive industry. Wave at me if you're in a competitive industry. Wave. Right. Get over it. The person that said that that competition is
like a good thing. I think they're an idiot. But the truth is, most of your competitors right now are crap at sales. They just are. So when you get great at sales, when you get great at converting conversations with people in your world, you're going to get ahead of the competition. It's an advantage. The other thing is, I don't know whether you know this, but you might want to write this down. You're meant to be easy to buy from. So whether you're a team, whether you're a leader, like when somebody moves towards you, it's really important that you have got a simple process for them to follow. You've got to be easy to buy from, all right? So here's another question. Why should you, if I could just see my slides, that'd be really cool, please. Why should you listen to me? Well, there's lots of information out there. The reason why I think I can connect in the entrepreneurial space is because 6 years ago, I started this little business with an idea, a vision. If you didn't know this, by the way, here's a rule. Vision first, mechanics second in business. So I had a vision, and all I wanted to do was teach SME business owners, people that care, people that want to serve others, teach them a congruent way of selling. And I learned it from 16 years of a family business in the tile and bathroom industry. So a tile or a bathroom is what we call the non-essential now. That there is my old showroom, and when people used to walk to the top of the stairs, I worked out the worst thing I could do was sound like a salesperson. Good morning, how are you? How can I help you? What are you looking for? Creep. What I realised is that actually that's not the game. And the game is to ask questions, be inquisitive, understand. Now, I learned the hard way. I wasn't particularly great at marketing back then. It was more, how do I make a sale with my voice? And what I created was a very simple process. From the moment somebody moves towards you, they've raised their hand as interested, it's to be able to take them on a little journey, micro commitments, little progressive, little logical next steps. And if you can do that and repeat it and have some structure, then what happens is your sales can grow quickly. You're not winging it anymore. So that's how I learned it. I then decided I wanted to teach it. And that was one of my first ever little coaching groups when I first started 5 years ago. So it was about then that I realised that what I'd learned in retail was actually transferable. So I wrote about it. I wrote a book called Open with a Close. Now, the philosophy and the reason why I'm sharing it is that when you have a conversation with somebody who already knows who you are, here's the only thing you've got to do. You haven't got to pitch them and start explaining. If you're explaining in the 21st century, you're losing. All you've got to do is answer this one question. Get an answer to what result would they need to get at the end for this to be the greatest investment they've ever made. That's all your job is. Find out what their vision of the result is. Now, if you can turn that vision into a reality via your service, your product, then progress. If you can't, don't pretend you can. Remember, the rule is this: under promise, over deliver, not the other way around. That's what salespeople with ethics do. So when I wrote the book and started to share it, people started to consume it. Oh, wow, it's a simple conversation where all I've got to do is find out what's in it for them. If you didn't know this, I'll invite you to write it down. Great salespeople. People elite at conversations, they always have the best interests of the end user in mind. That's where you got to go. That's where you got to go. It's not the 1970s anymore. So the moment I did that, things started to grow for my company. And I now teach sales, conversations, closing sales, exchanging contracts. As long as you've got a business that cares about others, as long as other people get results when they work with you, you'll love my philosophy. So what is the philosophy? Well, firstly, is to build a great team. I started on my own. That is now my team. There's 26 of us. And in the past 5 years, I couldn't do it without them. Some of them are here today. Like, team, give me a whoop whoop. Where are you? Is there any team in here? Oh, there you go, a couple of team members. So look, I think you've got to surround yourself with great people if you're an entrepreneur that wants to grow. And then there's one other thing about my philosophy that I want to share with you. Raise your hand if, when it comes to selling, you actually have got values. Raise your hand if that's you. Cool. So I believe that when you sell, it should be in line with your personality and your values. You don't have to be an awful person to sell. You don't have to use like crappy old tactics from the 70s and 80s. I believe in total transparency. And the way we do this is to have values when you're in conversations and in business, but also to make sure that you send your values to people you're going to do business with. Get them out there. Like, don't let it be the biggest secret. Like, so at some point, you've got to come out from behind the emails and share them. So here are our values. This is how we sell. This is how we converse with our clients that have put their hand up to be interested, all right? In fact, shall I go back to a slide that's not there anymore? Brilliant. I'll come to values in a second. So part of my, you can actually see them on the wall behind me. So it's just really important that when you conduct a conversation, you don't wing it, don't tell lies, don't say things that are not true, don't over-exaggerate, say it as it is. Say it in line with your values, and that'll get you a long, long way. Now, parts of my philosophy that I want to share right now are very simple. I believe that you should always make sure that the first thing that's in your mind is the customer. Stop thinking about yourself, stop thinking about commission, stop thinking about money. I know it's hard, by the way. I know it's hard, I get it. Like, we all need money. But the bottom line is this: if you sell something to somebody that doesn't want it or need it, you'll end up with a problem later down the line. You'll also get the wrong kind of customers. Raise your hand if you know what I'm talking about. You get the wrong customer. Yeah, when you get the wrong customer, you created it. So the second thing you want to do is make sure it's good for you. So if there are values match, go ahead. If they're not, don't. Like, slice them early. If they're playing like shitty little games, just slice them early. Just say, thank you, I'm out. And give them the opportunity to move back towards you and show some humility. But if they don't, get rid of them early doors. I learned that a longer time ago. Lastly, a win for the universe. Now, if you think that's a bit woo-woo, get over it. And here's the reason why. When you've got customers that give you money, and it's elegant and effortless, they're moving towards you, they've chosen you as the solution to a problem, and they're accelerating a result, they're getting something. Like, when they're happy and winning, guess what they do? They skip around. They tell other people. They become a stakeholder for you. And that's really, really important. Another part of my philosophy is to make sure that when you start the sales process, early on in conversations, before they've seen how much it is, before they've seen an offer, think like a GP. I don't know what's going on with these slides. Think like a GP. So, you know, if you hobble into the doctor's, Alka Patel, where is she? I need to avoid her for the next 2 days. So, like, you're wandering along like this. You walk into the doctor doesn't say, sit down, fatty, heart surgery. It's like, hey, come and have a seat. What's going on? How long have you been hobbling? Oh, just a couple of weeks. Okay, so we're like mid-September. So what, beginning of September? It's a bit earlier than that. Oh, what, August? July? Like, what do? They ask questions. They probe. They gather information first before deciding. And you should do the same. Stop pitching. Stop assuming. Stop pretending you know everything. Stop thinking you know what their problem is. Ask them and let them share. So gather it first. Last part of my philosophy really is around connection. I honestly believe right here, right now, like, I've got 2 girls, 13 and 9, and like, my wife and I were going, hey, look, let's sit down and put all our mobile phones away for a minute. Like, what kind of day did you have? What did you think about it? How are you getting on? Like, if they're in the bedroom for too long, I'm like, come down. Let's go in the garden for a bit. Let's connect. There's never been a time in our lives where human beings, whether they're in business or not, crave connection. Like, at some point, you've got to come out from behind your computer screen. At some point, you've got to start to connect with your audience again. You have to do this. The next thing is you've got to be conversational. Stop being the, hey, let me explain how it all works. Here's all the reasons why I think you should buy it. Here's why we're the best. It's like, and sleep. It's like, ask questions. What kind of results would you need to get from us for it to be a great investment? What led you to move towards us in the first place? How do you think we might be able to help you or not? What's going to happen if you don't resolve it? Like, you've got to have questions in your locker. Be conversational. Have great questions. And then lastly, there has to be some compassion. Like, all these amazing leads that we generate, there are human beings behind the lead. Somebody might have a problem. A business might be suffering or struggling. So learn to listen. Learn to really understand what their problems are. That's the skill. So here's the values. Our 7 core values are love people, be dynamic and daring, get results, do what we said we would, be open and real, bring energy and fun, and practice self-awareness and humility. By the way, I regularly fail on nearly all of those, which is why I have to have coaching. It's why we have to talk with each other. We have to work on these things. But you see, when you become amazing at sales, when you become amazing at communication, you're not trying to get everyone to buy everything from you every time. By the way, you might want to write this down. You're not meant to sell something every time. You're not meant to do that. So all you've got to do is operate in line with your values, find businesses, people that connect with your values, and progress from there. That's it. So you may be thinking, oh, that's amazing, Matt. So how do we do all this? So firstly, there are 5 things that I've been teaching for 5 years now, and these are what you would call cornerstones. So I can just give you the words, and I'm going to do that later, of how I follow up a lead that's been generated, a human being that needs me. I can just give you the words. But if there's no structure underneath it, and you're just all flaky, and you're just using emotion, what happens is you create inconsistency. You're not meant to be emotional when you're selling. You're meant to have a process and some structure, and then your humanity is meant to show up in the gaps. That's how it's meant to be. So you've got to have something to fall back on. So these are the 5 things that I use now when I'm making any sales call, any follow-up, any conversation. So the first one is confidence in sales. The second one is to have the right mindset. The third one is to know exactly what to say. The fourth one is to actually have the ability to say it properly. And then finally, it's to know when to say things and when not to say things. This matters. So that's the structure. And underneath the structure are the trainings. So with your permission, I've got 30 minutes and I want to give you some actual things that you can do right now. Is that all right? Just stand up for 1 second, everybody. Just stand up for 1 second. Just stand up. Just quickly. All I want you to do, just in the next 5 seconds, is just shake it out a little bit. Just shake it out. Everyone, just shake it out a bit harder. Shake it out a bit harder. I love this, full on. A bit harder. Just shake it out a bit harder. Okay, have a seat. Right, you ready? Let's give you some training. So, remember, if you want to convert conversations with human beings that you already know that are in your sales pipeline, that are following you, then you have to have structure and discipline if you want success. Stop winging it. Be the company that has the best sales team. Be the person that has the most amazing sales process. Be the person that's easy to buy from. Be the person that every single time knows exactly what they're meant to do. Be that person. So a couple of things you already know. Whilst marketing teams and marketing companies do really well with my philosophy, I'm not going to teach you today about marketing qualified leads and funnels and all the amazing things that you've heard all day. In fact, I'm going to teach you what's called SQL. So this is when the computers have got us so far, and now the human beings need to take over. This is where all the wins are. This is where all the low-hanging fruit is. And by the way, all of your customers are on your computer with a phone on it. This is a computer that you can voice note them, you can video note them, you can call them, you can send them a selfie. You can connect with this thing, and here's what happens. And you could push me on this. In the last 5 years, my stats say the company, the businesses, the people that put as much effort into communicating like a pro as they do into front-end marketing, you'll double the amount of business you do. And I'm talking from experience. Raise your hand if you'd like to double the amount of business you do in the next 12 months. Yeah, just get great at this, all right? So, this is my version of the old way of making sales online. You all know this, right? You've been here all day. You hit an absolute load of traffic to the front end. Then you might make an offer. It might be a discovery call. It might be a webinar, whatever it might be. And then some people go ahead and buy. I think Ryan Dice, amazing human being and an amazing talk, said only 3% of people that you already know in your pipeline buy. That means there's 97% of others that are literally still there, maybe just one conversation away. Now, of course, you've got your emails and your sequences. Here's the problem, everybody. I don't know if you know this, you might want to write it down. Never sell or negotiate on an email. We stopped reading emails. There you are, like crafting a big long email. Nobody reads it anyway. We just scan. There's no emotion in an email. There just isn't. You're not in it. Just long words. And you see, if they read it in the wrong way, or they read it in the wrong tone or the wrong energy, you might lose them, even though it might be the best email in the world. The other thing is, when somebody says, send me an email, say, do you want the good one or the bad one? We don't send bad emails about ourselves, so the brain switches off. Use email to summarize. Here what we agreed. Bang, bang, bang. Here's what we do next. Share information. Use it as a tool, but don't hide behind it. So, look, this is where I come in. You have currently got on LinkedIn, Instagram, emails from the past, lists. You have got human beings that are one amazing conversation with a human being that cares, away from saying, do you know what? I've been following you. I love your stuff. I had a few simple questions. Couldn't really do it all online. I'm in. And that's what I'm going to teach you right now, to dwell in between the lines. All right? So here's the first thing, sales confidence. Wave at me if you'd like more sales confidence. Right, who knows what confidence means? It means, very simply, the faith or belief. And by the way, where does faith and belief live in your body? It's not in your pancreas. You need a pancreas. Like where does faith and belief... You can't go to the faith and belief shop if you're feeling a bit low. Hello, mush. Feeling a bit low on self-confidence. I don't suppose I could have 100 quid's worth of faith, belief and confidence, could I? You can't buy it. You create it from within your body. You create it. And that's power, right? You get to choose whether you're confident or not. Here's what it means. That you have the faith or belief in somebody or something that you can rely on. So here's the news. First thing, you've got to upskill yourself. You've got to be able to rely on yourself in the moment. Like, you've got to have the skills in the 21st century to hold a conversation. And then you've got to have a process to fall back on. And when you get those two things, magic happens. So here's the first thing. Start off with, how skillful are you right now? Where are you now? Like, you can take a photo of that if you want. Those are the 10 standards that I keep myself accountable to, and my team, and anybody that I teach at my trainings, my academy, anybody that I can speak to. I'm like, where are you now? Hey, everybody knows this. What you measure can grow. Like, if you're going to be great at conversations, measure, where are you now? The second thing you've got to do is you've got to sort your money mindset out. So, here's how I answer this following question. Matt, how much is it? Well, like, if you've just met someone, like, raise your hand if you've got multiple services, multiple prices, like, raise your hand if you've got loads of things to sell. Like, and somebody says, how much is it? They don't mean, how much is it? They've already checked you out. They've got a feel for it. What they mean is, how certain is this person? Because no one's going to give you money if you sound flaky. How much is it? It all depends. Do not give this person money. Beep, beep, beep. Yeah, but how much is it? Well, it all depends, knobhead. Beep, beep, beep. Do not give this person money. Like, don't do that. So here's the rule. Sell the luxury yacht, not the dinghy. People say to me, Matt, enjoyed your talk or whatever it might be, or read your book. How much is it? And then they look at you to see whether you pass the certainty test. I always say, thank you so much for asking. My most successful students invest $50,000 per annum, and you can get started for $12.99 and buy a book and everything in between. Now you know that, let me ask you a question. It's over. It's over. Don't turn into a puddle when they ask you about money. And here's the problem. When they hear the money for the first time, what they're meant to say is, that's more than I want to spend. They're not meant to say, is that all? Why don't you double it? They're not meant to say that. So when they say it, they're testing your certainty. Because we don't give people money that are not certain. So look, here's the problem. If I judge someone because my money mindset's low, and they go, how much is it? I go, oh, they look cheap. I better quote my cheapest price. If I say, oh, $12.99, they go, oh, it's more than I want to spend. Now I'm screwed. So you'll create a ceiling for yourself if your money consciousness is low. Now, a high consciousness person, somebody that doesn't give a shit about money, they just want to get the result, they notice how you respond and they listen to words that you say. So I'm happy to share with how you're meant to answer this question. How much is it? Thank you so much for asking. That's an acknowledgement. Buys yourself some time. Remember not to be emotional. It all depends on what you have, and I'll put together an email and send you some ideas and have a think and see what. Let me know if you're interested. Don't do that stuff. It's just not attractive. It's, I want certainty from you. I want to know that if I give you money, you're going to be around, you're going to deliver on your promises, that you're not going to swan off with my money. So always acknowledge. And remember, oh, they didn't mean that, they're just testing my certainty. And then you go, my most successful students invest up to $50,000 per annum. You can get started for as little as $12.99 and ask a question. That's it, it's a structure. Certainty. The next thing you've got to do is make sure you get your words right. So here's some words to avoid from a high consciousness buyer. Never say the word cheap. Is it your cheap or my cheap? Never say expensive. Is it your expensive or my expensive? Never say the word cost because it comes at a price. Never say the word price because it comes at a cost. Never say the word discount unless you're going to discount a discount, and never discount a discount because it sounds like dull boy. And never say charge, because the only thing that I know that charges is a rhinoceros. Like, nobody wants to be charged. Send him down, charge him, that's a charge. Here's what I'm looking for. What do you know about the money? What do you know about the financial options? Tell me about what you understand. Like, what are you looking to invest? What are your fees? Our fees are. Here's the options for you to choose from. Like, these are words to use. High money contract. Our premium range is. Our bronze range is. Like, have ranges and then let them decide. Your job's not to decide whether they can afford it or not. They wouldn't tell you if they could, and they're never going to show you the bank statements anyway. So just because they say they can't afford it, it doesn't mean to say they can't. It's an invitation to explore what they really meant. Because if they didn't want to work with you, they'd just walk off. They'd just go and buy it somewhere else. So get your language right. Next thing you've got to do if you want to have amazing conversations is get your offer nailed. Here's the rule. I see lots and lots and lots of people in the entrepreneurial space who've got a podcast and a website and some online options. Oh, and I've got this sort of thingy-wingy that, you know, I haven't really started yet, but it's like a mentorship thing that I'm going to maybe do later. That's 10 grand, but you won't be able to afford it. So I've got this cheap thing here, and it's a one-day thingy-wingy, and I'm doing a book, and what else you need to know? They're like, yeah, pop it on an email, have a think about it. Weirdo. They're out. It's like, hey, how much is it? Great question. I've already told you how to answer that. And then I say, what do I get? Say, rather than me rattle off all the amazing features, advantages, and benefits, let me show you something in writing. But before I do, let me ask you a few questions and double check we're a good fit. Here's the rule. Show people, don't tell people. Stop explaining everything. It's too boring. You can't take something really complex and explain it to old knobhead here in 5 minutes and expect me to go, I'm in! Like, have it in writing. And then the other thing is, like, put everything that's valuable into it. I call this an irresistible offer. When somebody buys from you, it should be amazing. When somebody buys from you, the client experience should be amazing. The result they get should be amazing. The treatment they get should be amazing. Hey, most people make this mistake. The sales process doesn't finish when they buy. Part of retaining a customer and loving a customer is part of the process. So look, have an offer that makes it irresistible. Get rid of some of the things that don't work and put it all in the same one. Until it's full, then get another one. I actually have a template for that. I've had thousands of business use this template, and it just takes all the pressure away. Here's the next thing you've got to do. You've got to have the right mindset. So what do I mean by that? Well, it's all about what you believe to be true. So if you enter into a conversation with beliefs that are unhelpful, guess what? You'll make yourself right. Stand up if you love being wrong. No one. Wave at me if you love being right. Yeah, so when you've got a belief, you try and make that belief right. So it's really important that you check in on what you believe to be true. No assumptions, no presumptions, no opinions of others. Ask them, let them tell you. Stop assuming and presuming. Now, you've got to make sure that when you go into that conversation, that you have got helpful thinking. If you don't know this, there's a word called abracadabra. It's actually Arabic, Hebrewic, right? And it means that we create what we speak. So if you're saying stuff to yourself that's not true, like people can't afford it, you're just going to create it. So it's really important, if you want to serve others, raise your hand if you like serving others. All of us, right? Then you've got to check in on your beliefs, and you've got to make sure that you've got helpful thinking. Now, the science says that there's a part of your brain, what I call these the unhelpful police. Raise your hand if you know what I'm talking about. You know, when they say shit to you that's not true. Mine's me dad. You know, no one's going to buy it from you. You know, too expensive. You know, I can hear him, he's about here. But when I hear that off me dad, I realise that all I have to do is move towards something more helpful, because the same part of your brain that thinks negatively in a sales conversation is also the same part of your brain that thinks positively. So you get to choose. Now, I know which camp I'd rather be in, right? Wave at me if you want to be in the helpful thought team. Yeah, all of us. Cool. So next thing you've got to do is really have a think about, now I'm going to ask you a question. Imagine you were about to make a follow-up call to somebody that had attended something or shown an interest or you'd quoted, but they hadn't bought yet. I want you to write on your pad, this is a bit of deep work. You up for a bit of deep work, everyone? I know it's late. You up for a bit of deep work? I can't hear you. I'm actually nearly deaf. Say it again. Okay, write down what's the most unhelpful thought just before you go to make the call that you have in your body or in your brain. Write it down on your pad. By the way, one of the things people sometimes say is like what happens if they pick up? Like, if you're thinking that, how do you think you're going to get on? So who wants to shout one out? This is tough work. Who's got one? They're not going to buy. What else? What? The same, not going to buy. So if you plug that in, you're dead. If you're in your head, you're dead. If you're in your heart, you're smart. Right? So here's some things to avoid. Will they like me? Am I good enough? What if I screw it up? You see, when you're in helpful thinking and you've got great skills, I've got great skills, of course they'll like me. I'm a highly skilled, caring human being. I am a professional salesperson with soft spiritual energy and sharp skills. That is my incantation. When I can hear the old man, no one's going to buy off you, fatty. I'm like, hey, I am a professional salesperson with soft spiritual energy and sharp skills. I'm good. I've got everything I need. And I'm detached from what they do. Here's some more. Clicker, come on. Random fears. What if they answer? They definitely can't afford it, even though you've never seen the bank statements. What if they say no? Well, I know exactly what I'm going to say. They can find the money to invest if they really want to. Raise your hand if you bought your first house outright with £50 notes. No one. Raise your hand if you borrowed it off somebody that you didn't know, even though you couldn't afford it. Yeah. Any of you lie about what you're on to get the money? Yeah? Raise your hand if you lied about it. Yeah, loads of us. Liars. So we'll even lie to get things if we want to. Here's another one. What if they say yes? Like, if you're in that energy, it's a game changer. Lastly, sweeping generalizations. People in my industry are not buying at the moment. I always say, if I was on the moon with an alien right now and we were looking down at the world, where is the exact geographical location of your industry? Well, I don't know, do I? Oh, great. And what are the names of the people in it and where do they live? I don't know. Cool. So you believe that people in your industry that you can't define and you don't know and you've never asked aren't buying at the moment. What a load of crap. No one gets back to my emails. Well, text them to say you've sent them an email. Hey, this is called connection. I've sent you an email. 85% of emails either never get read, go to the wrong place. Just send me a thumb so you know you've got it. Not read. Raise your hand if you've got read on emails that you don't read. Like, raise your hand if it says read and you haven't read them. Let me ask you a better question. How many of you have got unread emails in your inbox right now? Raise your hand. Yes, stop using emails without sending them a text. Everyone I speak to is busy and it's not the right time. So take each opportunity on a one-to-one individual basis. That's the best way to do it. Just because they didn't respond, it doesn't mean to say they're not interested. And then lastly, find the ones that are committed enough to make this a priority. That's the right mindset. Now, the next thing we've got to do is get your words and phrases and statements right. So just remember, when you have a conversation, and I'm going to give you how I follow up and have a conversation in a minute, just remember that that's a human being. Bloody hell, I'd love to look like that. Where's Alka? Human beings, when they're being sold to, have got some defensive mechanisms. We call them, like, protective barriers. Now, underneath the protective barriers is a human and a heart. And actually, your job is to find like at heart-to-heart level, what led them to move towards you in the first place. You've got to get past some of the boundaries and the barriers. You just have to. All right, now, there's something underneath the heart that's more important. I call it the little green box of truth. And the way to get to the truth is to be a truth warrior and ask about the truth. Hey, Matt, I'd love to work with you, but it's not the right time. And it's more than I want to spend. And I've got to move some money around. I'm like, cool. All of those things, they're not my fault. Like, you didn't just have all those things in the last 30 seconds in my training centre. Like, that's on you. So what's the truth? What else do you need? Help me understand. You've got to get past the barriers, because in the 21st century, we can buy our time if we want to. It's a buyer's market. And we know there's sleazebags out there, so we can defend ourselves and defer. So it's really important that you focus on the truth, and the way to do that is to ask powerful questions. Matt, I'd love to work with you, but it's not the right time. Wonderful. When you say you'd love to work with me, what do you need? Well, a bit of sales process. Brilliant. What else? See, that one they haven't rehearsed. Confidence. Okay, cool. What else? Mindset. Like, it started up here, now we're down here. You've got to get to the truth, and that requires courage and skill. Now, there's a framework that I teach so that actually when you're in the conversation, you know exactly what to do. You're not winging it. This is a system I created a long time ago when I was a young man. And the system's called Punt with a Q. In my book, by the way, Open with a Close, it's on page 37. So when you do enter into the conversation, you must make sure you are committed to two things. Number one is you've got to gather as much logical information as physically possible about them that's helpful to make an informed decision or not. And also you've got to get to the truth and find out what the emotional answers are. Now, 80% my science says of every sale is emotion, only 20% is logic. It's a bit like when you bought your house. It's all emotional, then you make it make sense. So, what do they stand for? Pain, urgency, need, and trust. You have to have those four things if you're going to convert. If they're not there, if one's missing, they'll say things like, it sounds great, pop it on an email, I need to have a think about it. They'll move away from you. So the work you do when you're gathering during the sale is critical. The sale should be the hard work, closing and exchanging should be easy. So you've got to work hard. Now, I use a scoring system. How painful is it? 0 to 5. 5's very, 0's not a lot. How urgent is it to resolve right now? What's going to happen if you don't solve it? What do you need from me? Like, what do you know about our values? How much do you trust us already? And then the Q stands for qualitative or measurable information. So, here's the skill. In your sales process, online and offline, and particularly with conversation, you've got to constantly work at gathering that information. And the way to do it is to get lots of little micro commitments, so that by the time you come to convert in a conversation, they already have linked your product or service to solving their pain. They see you as the solution to the problem. Remember, it's meant to be their idea to buy from you, not the other way around in the 21st century. They have needs, and they're humble enough and self-aware enough to say, hey, like, I've been studying you, I've been following you, I like your philosophy, I think it could work for me. Like, how can you help me? You're looking for that. And it comes from that work. So you're welcome to take, that's a template, you can use it. Every single conversation you have, use that, tick them off, move on to the next one. So then we've got to go how to say it. Now, I'm running a little bit behind, so I'm going to be on time for everyone. So we're going to have to go through these fairly quickly. So look, I believe in being conversational in sales. Stop pitching and explaining all the time. There is a time to give them information and share it. But if you're having to explain, you're losing. So look, when you first get into a conversation, the skill is to get off to a flyer. So not crappy questions like, what's your biggest challenge right now? Oh, Mr. Salesperson, let me explain all my challenges and then maybe you could sell me something. They're not going to do that. They're going to push you away a little bit. So always start with a positive. I call it a prospecting pleasure question. Here's mine. Hey, when it comes to sales and in particular closing at an elite level, what's going well right now? They're much more likely to answer that. And then once you're in conversation, you can follow it up with, now I know what's going well. What could you do even better with my help? That's conversational. So you have to think about this thing. I believe that God, you don't have to believe in God, by the way, but I believe that God gave us a voice for one reason. Now, you don't need a voice. You need a heart. You need a liver. You need your internal organs. But if you were on a desert island for a year, on your own, you could torture yourself in your head. Your voice was given to you, in my opinion, by God, as a gift so that others can hear what's going on inside really. So look, we've lost the art of communication, but we've got it. We've got this skill. So you've got to really focus on your voice. There's so much love and connection in your voice. There's compassion in your voice. There's care and concern. Like, this matters. So here's a few to look out for. When you're asking a question, you can use questioning tone, but you don't want to ask someone for money when it's like, hey, would you like to go ahead? That doesn't work. It's a lack of certainty. The next thing is you've got to understand there's a recollection tone. Hey, is that David? Who's that? It's Matt. Matt who? Elite Closing Academy? Where? The sales guy. Oh, Matt, how you doing? Recollection tone. You can fire up that part of the brain just by getting your voice right. Here's the key one. Your voice is here, not here. Hey, is that Mr. Smith? It's Matt Elwell here from the Elite Closing Academy. It's just a quick call. I'm not trying to sell you anything. Just a quick call. Appreciate you're busy. How are you? I just thought we could touch base. I'm like, no, leave my base alone. But you see, a nervous salesperson with no skills speaks from here, up here. Somebody who cares speaks from here. It's where certainty lives. Is that Mr. Smith? Yeah, who's that? It's Matt. Hello, Matt. How you doing? Instantly, it's different. Here's a rule. You might want to write it down. Never sound salesy. Hey, how are you? No, don't do that. When you're closing the logical next step, use command tone. So I've got 2 dates, Wednesday or Thursday next week. Which one suits you best? Not, hello, I've got 2 dates, which one suits you best? But just be aware that when you're taking a logical next step, you should have earned the right. It's a bit like a snog. Like, the great snogs is when you're both pushing at the same energy, at the same time, having earned the right to do it. By the way, I got married years ago, 11 stone ago. Don't worry about it. I'm not going to try and snog anyone. Well, should we just move on quickly? Here's the other thing. Why did you change your mind? Why didn't you show up for the webinar? Why? Why are you getting another quote knobhead? How dare you? How dare you change your mind, you? Like, don't come across like that. You're not fit enough to be anybody's judge. You're a guide. That's all. Just a guide. Elite closers move slowly. So, we're nearly there. Look, one of the other things you've got to do is stop trying to make everybody right or wrong. So I don't teach overcoming objections. I teach how to explore an objection, because when somebody's qualified in your process with a micro commitment, they should be moving and progressing towards buying your product or service and getting the result that led them to move towards you in the first place. So why would somebody say, hey, Matt, I'd love to go ahead with you, but I can't afford it? So let me give you the reason why. If you saw somebody you didn't like in the street and they were ahead of you like that, what would you do? What would you do? If you saw something, you'd just cross, wouldn't you? You wouldn't walk over and go, hello, I don't like you. You wouldn't say that. So why would somebody say to you, hey, I'd love to go ahead, I can see the value, but, you know, I've got a cheaper quote elsewhere. They're giving you an opportunity to explore what they really mean. So you've got to lean into it, as long as they've qualified themselves. Matt, I'd love to work with you, but, you know, I think I can get it less elsewhere. Firstly, always agree. Glad to hear you'd love to work with me. And I understand you can get it cheaper elsewhere. Question for you. Moving money to the one side. If we were all the same, who would you choose? Other than the money, what's important to you? Like, you've got to have this skill. Hey, Matt, I'd love to go ahead, but I need to speak to my partner. Like, firstly, oh, hang on, wrong one. Don't worry, I'm nearly there. Of course, you've got to speak to your partner. Here's the truth. If your partner's not involved with this decision and right behind you, it wouldn't work anyway. So let me ask you a question. If your partner was here now, what would they need to see from me for them to say, babe, just go for it, I'm in? Agree, appease, accelerate. You've got to have that skill. If you want to learn that, it's in my book. You've got to learn it, right? So, lastly, when should you say these things? Well, look, remember that to go from being a beautiful little caterpillar up to a beautiful butterfly, there's a process. It can take time. And for some of our clients to be in a position to buy, they might even have to go through some painful stuff, all right? So, look, just because you've had a good conversation with somebody, it doesn't mean to say they're just suddenly going to go from little caterpillar egg to beautiful butterfly. There's a process. And as long as it's progressive, and as long as your sales process moves them forward or not, then you're good. All right? So here's the structure. What we're going to do now, write a name on your pad of somebody that's in your world that you could do some business with, somebody you could follow up. Maybe you've quoted them in the past. Maybe you're going to get back to them that you didn't. Like, write their name down right now, and I've got under 2 minutes, so I've got to go quick. So the first thing you've got to do when you pick up the phone and move towards them is qualify them out the block. They need to know exactly who you are and what you're doing. The next thing is you need to open the conversation really well. Always say thank you. State an exact reason. Ask a question. Thank you, reason, question. Not, hey, I just thought I could touch base, kind of thingy-wingy, how are things at your end? Not trying to sell you anything. It's not what we're looking for. The next thing, make it all about them. Don't start pitching. That's 1970s. It's got to be all about them. There's got to be something in it for them. And then lastly, create outcomes. So you should have a name right now on your pad. Wave at me if you've got a name on your pad. A name that's someone you could follow up. Higher. Wave at me. Higher. I'm concerned about the ones that haven't. If you haven't got one, think of this. Who do you know already that might possibly know someone that might possibly need you? And move towards them, right? So I do this every single day. Whenever I get the chance, I always follow up from people in my pipeline. When I first met this person, he was the very first person that I taught this to. His name's Nick James, CEO, Expert Empires. His team trebled conversions in 3 weeks as a direct result of this follow-up method without the need to create any new leads. These were people who attended webinars. These were people who were consuming information but hadn't taken the next step yet. So you should have a name on your pad right now. And I want you to use this. This stuff works. It's real. Okay? So have a reason to follow up and be specific. The way you remove fear in the buyer is to have a reason and to do things on purpose. The next thing is have like a genuine reason and state it. So you can apologise. You might have been thinking about them as long as you were. Here's just some of the key ones that you can use. The one that works for me is called the apology call. And here's what it sounds like. Maybe someone's attended something for me. In fact, let me give you a good example. I'll give you Mr. Smith, right? I won't give you his first name. I called him out of the blue. I said, hey, here's that. I'm going to call him David. Hi, is that David? He's like, yeah. Who's that? I said, it's Matt. Matt who? Elite Closing Academy? You attended my sales accelerator recently? Ah, Matt, how you doing? That's the qualification. I don't then need to say, hey, the last time we spoke, you said this, I said that, this happened. Like, you don't need to do that. As soon as there's some warmth in the voice and they know who you are, they're qualified. These are people you know. They already know you. Then you move on to the next bit. Firstly, I wanted to say thank you so much for taking the call completely out of the blue. I do have a reason. Hands over your mouth. What's the reason? Now they're asking, micro commitment. Firstly, thank you for asking. I owe you a huge apology. They're like, what have you done? I go, the last time we spoke, it felt like we were a great fit, and I've done a really bad job because I haven't got back to you yet. Here I am now. And then just ask something obvious, like, what would need to happen for us to do a bit of business together? That's it. That's it. And then put your hands over your mouth and surrender. And whatever they do next is on them. You'll have all the skills that you need to progress, but that's all you need. Get off to a great start, have some structure, make it about them, ask them a really powerful question that's obvious, and let it all go and see what happens. So, look, when you've got a strong reason for doing what you do, when you've got process and skills, and when you've got some structure, you will now be able to pick off low-hanging fruit, human beings that already know you, that have shown an interest in your product or service, without hiding behind computers and emails. You can just bring your energy, bring your humanity, bring your personality, bring your love, bring your compassion, bring your amazing knowledge and businesses and services and products, bring it to the table, and then let them make a decision whether or not the offer is going to get them the result they really need. And that's how you do it. All right? So, if you've enjoyed my talk, Matt Wilson has very kindly allowed me to come bearing gifts. So I've got some gifts for you. I am down the bottom of the stairs. You can see my team and I at the stand. And together, I put a pack together for you. So if you're enjoying this, I want you to give it a go. So come and get your pack. You get a copy of open with a closed audio book. I'll also give you my best scripts with the structure in. Now, you're going to have to make it your words, your phrases, your statements, but you can see exactly how my team and I are doing this and give it a go. Also, you can have my written proposal template and see how to create like a craft and irresistible offer. Give it a go. And then lastly, if you want to know how to overcome objections, there's a masterclass there for you with the 3 A's so that you can master it. So all you've got to do is scan the QR code that's coming up on the screen to claim your pack, put your details in now, and my team are going to send you quite a lot of love. And also, I'll leave that up for a sec while you're doing it. You can get all your goodies. If it doesn't work, we've got a problem. Ad? If it doesn't work, what should we do? Does anybody know that's techie? Has anybody got it working? Pardon? It works. Okay, like come this side if it doesn't work. We've got to get the next speaker on so quickly. You don't have to duck, it's all right. Got it? Okay, and also, you can visit the stand. I'm going to be around for the next few hours before I go this evening. And actually, I've got some physical copies of the book, so if you want to take one away, come and see me at the stand and the team. You can have it for free. Thank you so much for listening. See you soon.